the number one ranked Texas Longhorns take on Ohio State at Ohio State. It's a noon Eastern game. Unfortunately, it's the big noon kickoff. And again, a lot of people have brought that to attention, especially Ohio State fans. They kind of wanted to push this off till Sunday. That would have been stupid anyways, but I just can't stand big noon and how they just, wasted that time slot with their primetime game. But I digress. This is one of the most hyped up week one games I think I've ever seen. This is a huge matchup for sure. This is probably the biggest week one matchup since Clemson, Georgia back in 2021. Obviously, the Georgia Bulldogs winning that game. Texas and Ohio State met in the semifinals last year in a completely different circumstance. Is a lot weighing in on this game. As much as it was last year, no, but still, this is a chance for whoever wins this game to kind of be a complete lock. If you look at their schedules, you can't really find more than 2 losses for either side after this game. So definitely the winner of this game looks like a virtual lock for the college football playoff. That being said, let's jump into our prediction here as Ohio State is a 2.5-point home favorite, over under at 48.5. And the Vegas money line percentage is leaning towards Texas's way. I believe it's at 63% for that money line. For spread itself, I believe it's at 60%. So again, 2.5 is not that many points to lay anyway, so you might as well go money line or straight mine as well. But anyways, again, this is a noon game at Ohio State. Imagine if it was more of a nightcap-like environment, like a 7:30 p.m. Eastern game on ABC or even NBC. But no, Fox had to steal the rights is what it is. And I don't know if you guys have YouTube TV, but there's a chance that does not air. That would just be terrible for college football and for college football fans, most importantly. That being said, this is a completely different circumstance as it was last year, as Ohio State's team is a bit different, especially on the coordinators, losing both of them, Jim Knowles to Penn State, which is kind of funny in that realm, and then Chip Kelly to the NFL. Those are 2 huge coordinators for Ohio State. They bring in Patricia to call defensive plays, and then it looks like Ryan Day is going to have some influence there. But it looks like Brian Hartline's going to be calling most of the plays for Ohio State. And if you look at Ohio State's roster this year, they lose a little bit on the offensive line. They lost 2 elite running backs. Those are 2 irreplaceable backs. They come in with James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson, transfer from West Virginia, who had like an up-and-down career, to be honest with you. Didn't really do anything last year. That being said, I think he has a potential to be kind of that first and second down, whereas Peoples, I think he can get it done on third downs. And then obviously a big transfer was Max Clare coming to Ohio State, that tight end, by far the best in this game. On the defensive line, they lost a bit. Obviously bringing back Sonny Styles at linebacker and then Caleb Downs, 2 headliners for Ohio State this year. But then you look at Texas. Texas might have some question marks on the offensive line as well. And then a question mark at quarterback. But if you look at their defense is very, very sound. And a defense with PK calling plays, like I said. Just look who Texas has on the defense. Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill. They have a couple new guys on that defensive line, though, transfer from Purdue, and Watson. I can't remember his first name. But that being said, look at their DBs, too. Muhammad is coming back from last year. He didn't have the season that he wanted. But Derek Williams, he was injured for most of last year, and he's coming back for his redshirt sophomore season, as well as Jelani McDonald at nickel. This is a loaded Texas roster. It's one of the best it is the best in college football. Steve Sarkisian has orchestrated and constructed the best roster in college football this year. In ways, it's almost as good as Ohio State's last year. In fact, it might even be better than Ohio State's last year with Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. Both those 2 defensive players I would take over anybody other than Caleb Downs from last year from Ohio State. That is comparing them to JT and Jack Sawyer, who were good for Ohio State. And their leadership's probably not replaceable, especially this year. But that being said, I just think the talent on this Texas team is just unbelievable. Look on the offensive side, obviously Arch Manning, he's going to be a big question mark. But to be honest, with this offensive line, and I know they have some question marks here, but look at these running backs. Windsor, C.J. Baxter is also back. They have a couple other good running backs as well, wide receivers. Come on. Ryan Wingo, obviously he's probably the most talented wide receiver on this team. Emmett Mosley, I believe he's a transfer from Stanford who was misused, to be honest with you. They also had Air Minor, though. But that being said, he was the second wide receiver for Stanford last year. And then DeAndre Moore Jr., who's going to have a really good season. These wide receivers, I mean, Sark has constructed such an amazing roster. We could spend days and years talking about it. That being said, in terms of playing style, what am I expecting from both these teams? Well, I think Texas is going to try to play more game control. I think they're going to have the more establishable offensive and defensive line. They're going to own that line of scrimmage for, I think, a good part of this game, mainly towards the end of this game. Ohio State is going to figure out early on they're not going to be able to run the football, and then they're going to have to rely on Julian Sayin, a young quarterback, to win this game through the air. And Ohio State has done this before. But if you look at the games that they've played against teams with similar line of scrimmage, if not better, they typically lose when they're forced to air it out. There are just many instances in which Ryan Day has lost games. Like you can go back to 2021, the Oregon game, pretty much every Michigan game in which when he loses on that line of scrimmage, they lose outright. The Georgia game from 2022. You can just keep going. 2023, the Missouri game, the Michigan, you can just point to every Michigan game. And even into last year, I thought the Oregon game, they were evenly matched for most of the game. Oregon just found a way to win last season. But that being said, do I think Texas is just going to run it down Ohio State's throat? No. At least not for the first part of this game. However, I do think Texas is the better team. I think they're going to go more so on that game control, telling you, hey, we got the better offensive and defensive line. We have really good athletes, and we have the better running backs. We're going to run it as much as we can. And that's what I think Steve Sarkisian's game plan is. And to be honest with you, I think it's going to work towards the end of third quarter, early fourth quarter. I think they're going to try to wear down Ohio State. I think it's a low possessional game as well. I think both teams get about 5, maybe 6 possessions per quarter. Per half. 5-6 possessions per quarter would be unbelievable. 5 to 6 possessions per half. I think it's going to be a sloppy, sluggish game, especially in the start. Kind of like the Iowa State Kansas State game, except I don't expect as many turnovers, but just sluggish, sloppy play early on. And I think Texas steals a victory on the road, 23-10 against Ohio State. Might be kind of surprising with people with the lower scoring, but I do expect it to be more so of a defensive game, especially in the first half. I'm strongly taking the under for the first half. I think it's at 23.5 points. I'm hitting that for sure. I think the first half is going to be sluggish, sloppy, and slightly boring. But I think Texas is just going to wear down Ohio State. They have the better line of scrimmage. They have the better rush game. And Arch Manning's, is he going to be an incredible X factor? No, but I do think he's going to make enough throws and beat him on the ground as much as he can versus Julian Sayin, who, yes, he can run, but I don't think he's going to have the protection as well as Arch Manning is, especially against this Texas defensive line. It might be the best defensive line Ohio State plays all year. Them and Penn State are relatively close in terms of that. I don't think it's going to be the best offensive line, however, Ohio State plays all year. I think Penn State has the best offensive line in college football. They are too deep at every position. I can go on and on about Penn State. That being said, give me Texas on the road to wear down Ohio State and pull out a 23-10 victory. Let me know what you guys think about this. Who you guys think is going to win this game? Do you also think this is going to be a higher scoring game? I'm all over that under 48.5, and I'm definitely taking Texas money line. Do you guys think Ohio State's going to win? Do you think Texas is going to win? But I'm just glad college football is back, and I'm ready for this matchup. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.